In the last 24 hours, we've learned that Genji and Shopify Rebellion have orchestrated a one-for-one trade, with Cheese and Magic Bear acquiring Justin, and Two Piece and Parth will round out their roster with Retals. Wanted to talk through my initial thoughts of these two moves, this swap, and in the background here first, we are on Justin point of view. How beautiful is that Fennec that he's got there? Love that. Going up against Tech from Open 3. And then we're going to have Retals versus Ultimates from the Birmingham Major. It seems like the general sentiment here is that this is at best a lateral move for both teams, exchanging two aging players past their primes for one another, essentially reshuffling, but ultimately to no avail. I'd like to offer up a perspective perhaps with a bit more nuance, backed by some playstyle strengths, weaknesses, some stats, and of course, I'd be remiss to not add in some good old-fashioned NBA comparisons. But first, let's take a step back and talk about who Retals and Justin are at this point in their careers. And while we talk briefly to contextualize who these players are, let me know in the comments below who you think won this trade and why, and I'll be sure to respond, as Justin's going to try and get this one away from danger. Calm here trying to drop one in. They really struggled against this Tech roster, especially who were going for a lot of demos in this matchup. Anyways, quick refresher. These are two legends of North American Rocket League who have been fixtures on important rosters throughout their careers. Start with Justin because we're watching him. We can trace his roots, all the way back to like season 6 when he hit the This Is Rocket League shot, and the shot against Scrubkilla to win them a grand finals. He's playing with Garrett G and Turbo Pulsa and Fireburner and all these legends of the game, at one point considered to be the best player in the world, in my opinion, as he's going to get a huge heads up play here. Look at this from Justin. Let's watch this back, why don't we? Two piece with a nice little lofty pass over to the corner. Gonna dust talk. Beats Calm on the challenge there. Going to slow it down and see you later, Evo. That is a goal for Parth, orchestrated completely by Justin there. Since Season 8, he's seen his career slowly whittle down to where it is currently, spending an elongated period being widely criticized for sticking one or two or maybe three splits too long with Garrett and Squishy for an NRG team that went from North American frontrunners at their start to relative obscurity globally within just a few seasons. Finally, they splintered, and Justin found his way to only his second formal roster of his career when he joined the Shopify Rebellion team, who have come just desperately close to making a major. Last season, against OG Esports in the Major 2, they go to a tiebreaker, and they end up losing that, and that was definitely their best chance to get close to a major. But on the other hand, Retals, one of the most recognizable personalities within the entirety of Rocket League, and with good reason. He has a huge online presence on social media. He's been at the center of major rosters and roster moves, for that matter, dating back to his time on like the Peeps, I guess is probably as far as we want to go for these purposes. And since then, he's been a key component of, beloved Space Station Gaming rosters, Arsenal and Sipical, and then he's a part of Daniel's rookie season, and then he's dropped in a community-shattering move from SSG to join a revolving door of orgs, all of them connected to Magic Bear, from Optic to Luminosity to RMC, and most recently, of course, Gen G. So with all this history, both players have accumulated their fair share of fans and certainly a lot of haters as well. If you're on Twitter, you definitely have seen both sides of that. And the feedback that I've seen most frequently from this swap has, in broad strokes, people see this as a win for one team or the other. And most of that, I think, is just based on which player they think still has it and which player they think is washed. And I've seen it on both sides. Some people thinking, oh, Justin is past his prime and has been. That's why Shopify couldn't get over the hurdle. Oh, thank goodness, Gen G, you're going to make a move. Like Retals has been holding them back despite making several majors. But I digress. I don't think that this is a totally accurate way to look at either player. You know, oftentimes I think when there's criticism, it's important to first ask yourself, is this criticism fair? And in this case, I think the perceived talent level of these two players is being understated. Especially, I think a lot of it is because they're later in their careers and you just assume like, oh, old equals bad. But they both have had outsized impacts on their teams. And I'm going to flash some stats on the screen to give you a snapshot, not just of how important and high rated these two players still are within just North America in general, but I'd also like to shine a light on what these players bring when we talk about what the two duos that they're joining kind of needs. And let's talk first about Gen G here as watch this big play as we're going to see Justin. Just look at this. He's going to tuck one just over talk. At the end of this game here, I accidentally went back a little too far. Maybe we'll hold on to our Gen G thoughts for just a second and look at the tape. Justin going to beat one around the corner here. Evo tries to get that past Parth, unable to do so. Com's going to get clean dusted here by two-piece. Parth harassing Talk in the net, and Justin is going to slot it right underneath of him. And that is going to send us more than likely to overtime here. So I guess with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what these two duos need. And we've been watching Justin, so we'll start with Gen G, because he's going to be joining Gen G, of course. Just coming off of a LAN appearance in Birmingham, finishing almost exactly where I think people thought they were going to finish, is Justin diving save on the goal line there. And that, you know, they nestled nicely into that just outside of top 8 range, which is where most people, myself included, ultimately thought that they had a likely chance of ending up. And Retals, super physical, opens a lot of space for Gen G, who plays very like spaced out style. I guess like one way to look at it is if you looked at Birmingham, Retals, Magic Bear, and Cheese were number 1, 2, and 3 in distance from teammates. So at their best, they space it out wide, they gather speed, they look for demos and little clips on defenders on the back end, and then they look to capitalize on that, create windows to strike. What they've needed, in my opinion, is another on-ball creator. Cheese is excellent at a lot of things. Still developing, really young player, going to continue to improve and could add more of this to his game. But currently, if I had to rank players that scare defenses when they're, you know, on the ball midair with 100 boosts, Cheese isn't making my short list. Striker, he's an excellent challenger on the ball. Whip smart, reads the play very well. But I just don't think that he's a very deadly, you know, solo mid-air tactician, you know, resets and things of that nature, which is important in today's Rocket League. And that means a lot of the offensive burden has fallen to Magic Bear in my eyes, where Retals, like a fantastic passer, especially when they're in the box, but certainly a step behind mid-air consistency and potency of a player like Justin. And of course, as I say that, Justin's going to totally waffle that mid-air reset. But generally speaking, I think that that is something that Justin has in spades above a player like Retals. And great pass there by two-piece. Justin going to put it away. And check out our scoreboard real quick here. Justin, 2-2-2, getting involved all across the board here as we're just about to talk about Shopify and what I think Retals is adding to that team. Let's go ahead and swap the game over to watch Retals take on Ultimates from the Birmingham Major. Retals' point of view, Forbidden Temple. Look, for Shopify, they already have their two young, strong, on-the-ball talents in two-piece and Parth. I think this roster honestly could be encapsulated most effectively by off-the-pitch, like intangible kind of stuff. Excuse me. As Retals going to slot a nice one, try to slot a nice one there. Excuse me. and is going to try and maintain this offensive pressure here for his team. Two Piece talked about the reason they wanted to stick as a roster. And a quick aside, remember, not a lot of teams this offseason stuck together. As a matter of fact, Gen G and Shopify were two of the few who decided to keep all three of their players together. And Two Piece had said, one of the reasons that they decided to stick was they felt like they had the talent. I mean, they started out last season top 4 placement, and they ended their season, that is, with a grand finals loss to G2 before losing, that tiebreaker that we talked about. Two Piece also said that this is a team who sometimes outplay themselves. And I think back to their first split, specifically the most recent, Open 3, they have losses to Gas, which is several players who are retired and not even scrimming against each other, and then they lose to Tech. They got the win in that game that we watched just before this, but ultimately lost that series. And I think that tells you a lot about where they are mentally. This team needs someone with recent LAN experience who can be a vocal leader, who can give them an edge to beat teams they should be beating. And if you see where I'm going with this, I think Retals fits that bill, and Justin fits what Gen G are looking for. Gen G are gaining a new, high-tech player who is positionally solid, defensive-minded, who can pop when called upon around, emerging talents like Cheese and Magic Bear. Shopify are gaining a chip on his shoulder, physical space maker who can give them the mental toughness and edge to break past whatever mental funk they have continuously run up against in big moments. Sometimes the grass truly is greener. Sometimes when you're stuck in life and can't break past a difficult decision, a pattern, a hurdle that you come up against, the best thing you can do is look at things from a fresh perspective or take a different approach. I think this is true professionally in many aspects of life, certainly with sports. I mean, think about how Jalen Brunson has flourished once he left the Dallas Mavericks, and how now has become, a cornerstone of the New York Knicks. What about disgruntled or underutilized players seeing fresh productivity in new situations? Josh Giddey when he gets to the Bulls. James Harden coming to the Clips. Lauri Markkanen to the Jazz. Dyson Daniels to the Hawks, who might be Defensive Player of the Year, by the way. But anyways, in the RLCS, Gyro, Hoxer, Sosa, Atomic with a K, all players who recently have moved on from situations that seemingly capped what their productivity could be, and then they outperformed those expectations with a fresh team. Maybe this is exactly what both teams need to elevate to that next step. Gen G have felt immense pressure from the community, myself included, to make a move that would give them a different look and feel to compete in North America. And imagine if they wouldn't have made that incredible run in Open 3 to punch their ticket to Birmingham. This conversation would have been much louder than it is. Two Piece and Part felt the pressure to win. They bring in a world champion in Justin. They just could never quite get the pieces together. And for what it's worth, I was always kind of unsure if this team enjoyed playing together. Like when you watch their face cams in series, like their big win over Deleted Gaming when they won that game 7. You can go back and watch it, or you can just take my word for it because I watched it just a second ago. But they hardly even reacted when they scored big goals in that game 7. You should be at least a little excited to be winning. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but for what it's worth, this is also a Shopify org who has been looking to do more team house style content, and Retals is going to excel in that. Should give them a competitive, dogged edge in those big moments. And I think he's a pretty solid leader who can, get this team out of, especially, this Gen G roster, if they would get into tough situations. I think he's played an important role in the growth and maturity, especially mentally, of Magic Bear and Cheese. And unfortunately, Retals going to give up a tough one defensively there. But I'm really excited for both of these rosters next split. And, if they played tomorrow, I think I give the edge to Shopify in a head to head, but I feel like Gingy are probably going to be the more competitive team next split. But who knows? Maybe they both make it. Crazier things have happened as we're going to find our way to overtime here. Again, if you guys haven't already, maybe this context helped you out. Let me know down below who you think is ultimately the winners of this trade. And if you haven't done so yet, maybe you want to subscribe. I don't know. I haven't subscribed to myself. I don't think you're able to, but do whatever you want is what I'm saying. So far, this is playing into the pace that Ultimates want it to be going here. Magic Bear with a crazy redirect. Oh my goodness. And that's how we're going to end this one with Retals just doing everything you want him to. A goal, 2 assists, and a save. Guys, thank you so much for giving me time out of your day to talk over this move. I appreciate you as always. And until next time, guys, take it easy.